Hey friends, I hope that your new year is off to a great start. If you resolve to treat yourself this year, today you are in luck. I'm testing out the Salted Caramel Chocolate Tart from Appetit. So when I saw this recipe, I immediately knew I wanted to make it because salty desserts are kind of my thing. So this is right up my alley. As I was reading through the comments section on this recipe, it seemed like a lot of people were actually struggling with this. So what I wanted to do today is just take you through my first attempt making this recipe, and that way I can give you some tips and tricks that will make it a little bit easier to navigate and hopefully set you up for success. So if you find this recipe test useful, please be sure to give me a thumbs up and click subscribe because I'm releasing new videos every single Wednesday. All right, without further ado, let's see how this recipe goes. A link to the recipe and ingredient quantities are in the description box below. Alright, so making the crust starts off pretty straightforward. In a medium to large bowl, just combine all of the dry ingredients, and then you're going to whisk this really thoroughly to get it fully combined. Next, you'll add in the cut up chilled butter, and you're just going to kind of pinch this and rub the butter through the dry mixture. You're slowly breaking the butter down into smaller and smaller pieces, and what you're looking to accomplish is to get all of the butter fully incorporated into the dough, and then you're going to add in the egg and the milk or water and just work that through again. You can touch this dough a little bit more than you would a normal pie crust. Since there's less flour in here, it's not going to get tough as you overwork it. Once complete, add it to some cling film, roll it into a little disc, press it down, and then pop that in the fridge to chill. After chilling, remove the dough and let it come up to room temperature for just about 5 minutes, and then you're going to roll this out on a well-floured surface. So you want to make sure that you keep turning the dough and you keep adding additional flour as needed, pinching up any kind of rips and fissures as they arise. Once you feel like your dough is approximately the right size, you can put the tart pan on the top to kind of see if it looks like it's big enough. Then you can fold up the edges with the tart bottom underneath the dough, and that way it's a little bit easier and more stable to lift the dough into the tart pan. And this dough is incredibly fragile, so expect it to break a little bit as you're transferring it. So I'm just kind of going around and pinching it and repairing any cracks, putting the rolling pin over the top to kind of cut off anything that's sticking up. I did find that that pushed the dough down into the tin a little bit, so I scooted it back up the edge and just tried to kind of make it look as neat as possible. With a fork, I'm just putting little holes all over the bottom of the crust. This allows steam to escape during baking so that the crust doesn't puff up. Baking the crust is a multi-phase ordeal, so first you bake it with either pie weights or beans. The weights keep the crust from rising. So then you empty the beans out, put the crust back in the oven to finish baking. I noticed I had a few cracks, so I patched it with some leftover dough and baked it again just to finish cooking those little patches. For the caramel, I'm combining the sugar, cream of tartar, and water in a heavy bottom kind of medium saucepan. I'm going to put this over low heat, medium-low heat, until the sugar is fully dissolved, and then you can turn it up to about medium heat to kind of develop the caramel color. So this takes a really long time, so just hang in there. What you're looking for is a very deep amber with wisps of smoke. So take it a little bit further than you want to. You obviously don't want to burn it, but don't be afraid of the color. Once you reach the desired color, you want to immediately get that off the heat, add in the butter and the cream. This is going to foam quite a bit, so you want to make sure you have enough room in your pot to accommodate this. And then you want to just pour it in a measuring cup and let that cool down until it's just pourable. Add that to the cooled tart crust and let that cool completely for about an hour. To make the ganache, just combine the chocolate, butter, and cream in a heat-proof bowl, and we're going to put this over a double boiler. The recipe said not to go over 70% cocoa because it would cause the ganache to split. However, I used 70%, and you can see my ganache actually split twice. So this first time, you can see it's very kind of gritty and oily looking. The second time that it split, I added some just regular milk and tried to stir that through to repair the damage, but you can still see it almost has kind of a sandy texture. And this final time, I actually used bittersweet chocolate chips with the milk and butter rather than a nice chocolate bar, and it turned out perfectly. So I would definitely say don't go over probably 65% cocoa. You'll know your ganache is cooled enough when you can put a spoon in it and it holds the mark of the spoon. Then just kind of spread it around the top of the tart, letting the caramel peek out around the crust, and then top with flaky sea salt. Alright, so the tart has been resting for 10 minutes, and this is what the slice looks like. You can see the caramel is kind of a little bit gooey still. Let's see how this tastes. It's really gooey. It's not overly sweet. It's actually surprising how not sweet it is. It's a really nice balance, and it's not really skewing too heavily in any one direction. It's very reminiscent of a Twix bar from a texture standpoint. Flavor, obviously this is much better. So you've got the crunchy, crispy cookie, the gooey caramel, the kind of melty chocolate, and then the salt flakes on the top. So it's a really nice kind of feel in the mouth. Okay, so overall I'm really happy with the end product here. So the taste of the tart and the presentation are both top notch. I mean, I feel like it looks exactly like what Carla made in the Bon Appetit video. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. The process of getting from recipe to enjoying this delicious tart was extremely trying for me. Each of the components of this recipe wasn't necessarily difficult, but they were very fussy. So the chocolate crust came together quickly, but it was such a pain to roll out and it was difficult to work with. Making the caramel wasn't hard, it just took forever. And the line between a nice deep amber and burnt is, I mean, it's a matter of 30 seconds. So I'm right on the cusp there, and if I had crossed it, I probably would have said screw it and just used the burnt caramel anyhow because I was at my wit's end. And then the chocolate ganache, mine seized twice and I had to throw it away. Every single step was just so trying and exhausting. So I mean, the end result, delicious. I'm so happy that I made this and got to taste it. So will I make this again? Probably not. I definitely will not make it all in one day again. However, the recipe did include steps for what you can do ahead. You can make the crust one day, make the caramel one day, make the chocolate right before you're ready to go. So you can kind of cut down the amount of time that you're spending at any one given moment. So this is definitely kind of a medium to high risk recipe. So you need to buy a tart pan. There are the bars of chocolate, which are pretty expensive, the Dutch processed cocoa, which is also expensive, the time commitment of making all of these components and potentially having to turn back and start over at any moment. If you do try it, I hope that this video was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And if you do make this tart, please tag me in your post on Instagram. I would love to see how yours turned out. And if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe because I'll be releasing new Bon Appetit recipe test videos every single Wednesday all year long. See you next week.